Leo, the dust has settled on another season in Leinster Rugby. How do you reflect as head coach on the season that was?
Excellent question, Marcus. How do we reflect on the season? Yeah, like it is very frustrating at the end. There's so much great things that went on during the course of the season. So I think everyone can be immensely proud of some of the great things that happened. You get to a final of Europe, like you're 18-10 up in the game. So you're doing lots of really good things to get to that point. If you started off the season said you're going to be in the final in Marseille and you're 25 minutes to go and you're 18-10 up, you're like, you take that. But yeah, there's a series of events that take place in the game, which leads to a very frustrating, sickening, disappointed feeling at the end of that day. And then it's trying to get back up again, isn't it? So like you have that great disappointment because the Champions Cup is the name, so you're up against lots of champion teams. And then you go back to the domestic competition after that. So put on a big performance against Glasgow in the RDS. And then 6 days later, we can't quite get back up to that level again. So, which gives us a similar sort of feeling, doesn't it? Which is hugely disappointing. You work so hard to get to that point. Like again, how are we at home in the semi-final? Because you've gone through the 18 regular pool games in the URC and you've got accumulated more points than all the other teams. So, but ultimately, it's about winning on the big days, and that's what we try to be as a club. You want to do it in a certain way as well. So ultimately, yeah, like there's a fair bit of frustration about how the season has ended. But yeah, there's lots of parts in the season where we look back, young players coming through, young players making their debut. There's a trip to South Africa there, even though we don't win the two games. It's been a fantastic experience for players and coaches. Think back to some of the big days we had, semi-final against Toulouse, the quarter-final before that against Leicester away, the support that we've had along the way. So lots of positives in the season, but we'd love to have come away with, silverware. Unfortunately, we haven't done that, so it can feel a little bit painful when you reflect back on the season, but lots of positives in terms of getting us into position. So the big thing is, you start from scratch again. So when we come back in for pre-season, it's going to be about focus on the basics, getting the basics of our game right, fundamentals, so they don't break down on the big days, because you've got to get to the big days first. So when we come back in for pre-season, it's making sure we get the basics right of our game, and look to improve young players again, adding layers of experienced players, passing on the knowledge that they have. International players returning from tour. Sharing some of those experiences. So, yeah, lots to look forward to. When the season's done, win or lose, you've got to be able to park it and get excited by the new challenge. And each season throws up a different challenge. So we'll get to our fixture lists, how that unfolds, how you try to navigate your way throughout the season, and get to the big days again. So that's what we want, is being back at the big days.
In terms of challenges, the last couple of years have been dominated by COVID-19 challenges. Thankfully, the season just gone, we had a return of supporters. And you mentioned some of the big days there, like the 4,000 odd that went to Welford Road, Toulouse, Munster in the Aviva, etc. And even talk of 12 to 15,000 that were in Marseille cheering us on. The supporters being back was a massive narrative to the season that just was.
Absolutely, yeah. Cheapers, when you think about previous seasons, recent previous seasons where there's nobody and you're kind of questioning why we're actually why we're doing this, because it was the buzz of the games that made you do all the work during the weeks. And you could see on some of the days where teams were quite flat, and particularly there was more away wins during that COVID period as well, because there was sort of strength in the collective of a group being together, whereas you see the difference the home fans make all across the different competitions that are out there. And we're lucky with the fans that we have, and that's why the players do it. And it's a real privilege for us to run out, or the players, should I say, run out in front of friends and family, where that's the RDS or the Aviva. So, and on the road then as well. So, even at Christmas we had a couple of wobbles as well around some of the games, and we games that had to get postponed, which placed a little bit more stress then later in the season, and which led to maybe some of the fatigue, I guess, towards the end of the season. But yeah, like we're optimistic that the future is bright, and yeah, no, we really look forward to the day, as in the days again when we're back now at the RDS, and we hope we get big numbers of season ticket holders that are through the turnstiles on a week-to-week basis. In terms of the home game piece, when we move down to the Aviva, that we have those sort of bumper days out as well, because yeah, like that's part of it, isn't it? Like that's the great thing about representing this team, this club. So yeah, we're excited about the big days ahead, we hope.
For those big days ahead, there will be a couple of new faces in the Leinster environment when you come back for pre-season. Seanie O'Brien obviously coming back to the club to replace Dennis Leamy, and Andrew Goodman as well being announced there last week, coming in to replace Felipe Contabomi.
Yeah, two different coaches, yeah. Sean, so starting off, and Sean has had a massive career, a proper legendary status really as a player. If you think all he's achieved, former European Player of the Year, gone on with the Lions tour, multiple caps for Ireland, a lot of success as a player with Leinster, real driver of energy, performance, has gone away. He's had his issues with injury in recent seasons. Went to London Irish. I think it's been a positive for him, so he's seen another environment. So Seanie starts out on his coaching journey. I think that role, is a good stepping stone for Seanie. I think he will have strong ambitions to progress his coaching career. But he'll bring real presence, I think, to the role in terms of that contact piece. Like he's in the thick of it as a player. So from an experience point of view of passing on his experiences as a player, then he needs to learn in terms of his coaching process, how he message players, and that's going to be a hugely exciting challenge for him. And I think for the players, even just talking to some of the guys in recent weeks when it's sort of become apparent, I think they're excited to learn, and hopefully he'll be able to pass on lots of the experiences that he's had in the game as a player. Andrew Goodman, again, ex-Leinster player, even though it was for a short stint. He was unlucky in terms of some of the injuries that he had when he was here. I spent a lot of time with Andrew here when we were injured together, so we formed up a relationship back in those days. But what he's gone on, I would have understood the way he thought about the game from a lot of the interactions and conversations that we've had as former players. I know it's a long time ago now. But in terms of what he's done, so when he retired as a player, he had a coaching role with Tasman first, and he's gone on progressed to be head coach there, but also with the Crusaders, who are a team that we respect greatly. Huge success in Super Rugby. I think Andrew will add massively. He's a great character, and he's coming from a great environment. So where he's coached multiple All Black players, and he's also coaching with the Samoan national team as well. So yeah, I think he's one of the bright minds in the game, I would see at the moment, coming from New Zealand, where it's you see the talent pool that they have down there of players and coaches, and he's someone that's been earmarked greatly down there. So I feel very lucky that he's come in to replace Felipe, and he's got some good raw materials there to work with, we believe, as well. So yeah, hugely excited to get Andrew there and learn from what he's experienced in the last 5 years in an environment like what I'm talking about, the Crusaders environment, but also the Tasman environment, where lots of good young players. So in terms of he understands that player development part as well, and then Samoa, working with an international team and all the bits that you pick up there. So we're really excited by the appointment, and can't wait for him to get up and running now.
Additions behind the scenes, Leo, and additions on the field as well. A couple of months ago, Jason Jenkins' signing was announced, and then more recently, Charlie Natai coming from Leon.
Yes, and bringing two certain different strengths really. Jason brings size and power. That's in terms of bread and butter. Call a spade a spade. We've lost the semi-final there to the Bulls. Jason was ex-Bulls as a young player. Jake White, current coach of the Bulls, brought Jason Jenkins. I talked to Jake about Jason at the weekends, or obviously before that Bulls game, Yeah, like spoke incredibly highly of him. He would have brought Jason, as I said, to Japan, where Jake, you know, he pretty much, I think he'd open checkbook. He could have brought many players over there. But yeah, no, Jason is definitely one that, and because he's been in Japan, he's sort of a little bit off the radar, really. Has had his one cap for South Africa. Johan van Graan would know Jason well, so brought Jason in there. A little bit unlucky with some of the injuries that he has had down in Munster, but yeah, hopefully he can hit the ground running now, start of the season, and yeah, we're excited by what he can deliver. I think he's a lot of promise, and yeah, we'll see how he goes. But it's a competitive space as well, so we'll be up against it because there's some good talent there. Number of locks will go away with Ireland during the summer. And some guys have been unlucky to miss out as well, so for different reasons. But yeah, no, we've a good group of young locks there with some experienced locks there as well. So we're excited to see what Jason can bring. In terms of Charlie, I went to visit the Chiefs as a player in New Zealand. So when I was still playing, so my last year of playing, so I was 36 years of age at that stage, and seeing Charlie as a leader in the Chiefs group at that stage, so you're talking 8-9 years ago, and so he's gone on, he's played for the All Blacks, he's had his injury worries, so he dealt with concussion period, and you know, we've had a few players that have dealt with that as well, so there's that part we can learn about, even just some of the conversations that I've had with Charlie and how he managed that period of his career. But he's gone to France. I remember when he went to France first, his name was around, and you know, we would probably be a little put off by that part of his game at the time, but you know, he's gone on there, he's kicked on fine. And he's been a real key driver. You saw, for those that would have watched the Challenge Cup final, Lyon against Toulon, I went to game, and you just see the presence that he has on the field. So his on-field leadership, he's developed his off-field leadership all the time. So we see Charlie as being a real leader in the group. That, you know, when you have a lot of, or some of our most experienced players, you know, they're trying to lead with Leinster and also with Ireland. So having that stable presence there, I think, will be very, very important for us. Because you know, he's not getting called away to represent an international team. So it's something that we see, particularly, you know, obviously this season coming, you know, get established in the team. But then you're into a World Cup cycle, so it's having that stable presence for the following year as well. I think Charlie can really add there from the experience that he's had in a Chiefs environment, the All Blacks environment, Lyon environment. So, you know, he's, you know, obviously he brings his skill set that he has as well, that ability. You know, we played against Lyon a few times and against Charlie, so his ability to, you know, play the game, the skill set that he has, his running game, his kicking game, which, you know, we've seen a lot of, but his passing game as well. So he, you know, he's a lot of strings to his bow, and I think he's going to add to not just our young players. That's obviously the obvious thing to say, but some of our experienced guys as well. I think he can add a huge amount to the group. So yeah, excited to get him here.
Well, Leo, thanks a million for a great season. Disappointing the way it ended, obviously, but enjoy the summer, and we look forward to seeing you again in pre-season.
Yep, very excited to get going again.